السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قال الله تعالى في شان حبيبي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وسلم على سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم عليه صلاة وسلاما عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. We've been talking about the Hajj, and for the past couple of weeks, and we'll continue with this. Last week we mainly focused on Sulh Hudaybiyah, and the aspect of how that changed the way we make the tawaf. Again, when we think of the Hajj, we think of, in general, we think of Ibrahim al-Islam and the Sunnah of Ibrahim al-Salam. But in reality, everything connects back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as I said last week, when we look at the ibadah or the worship that we do, we worship Allah, but every worship that we do is connected to someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And Hajj is a prime or simple example of this. Of course, when we make the intention for Hajj, Allah is pure and accepts only that which is pure. So our intention should be purely for His pleasure. But every aspect of the Hajj reminds us of the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. When we go for the Hajj, we enter Makkah. Of course, there are different forms of Hajj. Some people come straight to Mina. But in general, most people enter Makkah. And the first thing that you do when you enter Makkah is you go and you make tawaf. So when you walk in, and when we think of the Kaaba, we think of the efforts of Ibrahim al-Islam and Ismail al-Salam. So we make the tawaf, and as I mentioned last week, the way in which we make the tawaf now. Again, Ibrahim al-Islam, when he made the tawaf, his ihram covered both shoulders, and he walked around the Kaaba 7 times. But then, when we make the tawaf today, the ihram comes underneath the right shoulder so that the right arm is exposed. And we walk briskly for the first 4 circuits and then regularly for the last 3. Again, this is connected to what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered us to do. After Sulh Hudaybiyah, when they went back the next year, and the Quraysh had spread the rumor of, the Muslims being weak. So he said, show them your strength. So even today we do that, the same way. Of course, the tawaf starts where? At Hajar Aswad. So the beginning of the tawaf begins when we kiss Hajar Aswad, whether we are able to kiss it physically or symbolically, simply pointing towards it and kissing our finger, or if we have a stick, pointing the stick towards it and kissing that, if we can't reach the Hajar Aswad. And this is again the rahmah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is rahmatul lil alameen, and knowing that not everybody will have the opportunity to get close enough. You have so many people, and of course, pushing and shoving in Hajj is haram. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he equated that to committing suicide. So not everybody can get close. So he gave us this mercy that you simply point towards it, you kiss it, and you start. the Hajar Aswad, it reminds us, everything in reality reminds us of Allah, because everything is the sign of Allah. The greatest sign of Allah is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we're reminded of other aspects of the sign through other creation. And so, most of us, when we think of Hajar Aswad, we think of the time when Rasulullah placed Hajar Aswad within the Kaaba, when the dispute was going on. We go around it, the Kaaba 7 times, we complete those 7 circuits. And then we go and we make 2 rakat salat at Maqam Ibrahim. So the question is, what is Maqam Ibrahim? Maqam Ibrahim is that stone on which Ibrahim al-Islam stood as he was building the Kaaba. So when the Kaaba, when the height of the wall got high and too high, Ismail al-Islam brings this stone and he has his father stand on it. And the interesting thing about the stone is that wherever Ibrahim al-Islam needed to go, that's where it would go. Whatever height he needed to be at, that's where it would take him. And of course, on that stone is the footprint of Ibrahim al-Islam, even today. They've changed it a little bit because they put a silver lining around it. But if you get close enough and you're able to look inside, you can still see the mark in there. Unfortunately, these days, of course, now things have changed again, but used to be you tried to get close and they would beat you away saying shirk or haram. But if you are able to get close enough, you can see it. Because this is one of the miracles of the prophets, that if they stand on soft ground, if they don't want to leave a mark, there's nothing. And if they stand on the hard stone, when they want to leave a mark, there's a print there. And so the print of Ibrahim al-Islam is there. So we make 2 rakat salat at Maqam Ibrahim. This, interestingly enough, is not really the sunnah of Ibrahim al-Salam. There are certain verses in the Quran, and roughly about 30 verses of the Quran, that were revealed in honor of Sayyidina Umar, radiallahu anhu. So he disputed with the other companions over an issue, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the verse in honor of him. And so the issue was that Umar radiallahu anhu, he comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to make sajda, I want to make salat where Ibrahim al-Islam stood. This Khalilullah, the friend of Allah, where he stood, I want to place my head there. I want to make salat there, and I want to make sajda to Allah there. The other companions, they said, we just got away from bowing to these stones, so what are you talking about? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he reveals the verse, which is part of the verse of Surah Baqarah, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and take Maqam Ibrahim as a place of worship, as a place of salat. So then we make, again, all of these things remind us of the ones Allah loves. We make salat there, we go and we drink from Zamzam. What does Zamzam remind us of? Or who does it remind us of? It reminds us of Ismail al-Islam. This is the water that gushed forth from the place where the heels of Ismail al-Islam as a child were rubbing. And the interesting thing about Zamzam is that it's different than any other water. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that this is not only water, but it is also food. And when he said that, some of the companions, they started doing nothing but drinking Zamzam. For 30 days, some of them drank nothing but Zamzam, ate nothing at all. And they didn't lose weight, they gained weight. So again, and Zamzam we drink standing up. All the other water, the command is drink it sitting down. But for the ihtiram or the adab of Zamzam, we drink it standing up, facing the Qibla, reciting salawat on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. From there, what? Then we go to Safa and Marwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions Safa and Marwa in the Quran as His signs. What is so significant about these two hills? We refer to them as mountains, but when you look at them from an English standpoint, they're hills. It's not like Everest or even the Rockies or the Appalachians. They're just hills. Two outcroppings of stone at a little height. And we don't simply walk between them. We walk part of the way and then we run another part of the way and then we walk again. It's very specific, the area where we run and the areas where we walk. What do they remind us of? Who are we emulating? We are emulating the mother of Ismail al-Islam, Bibi Hajj, salamullah alayha, the wife of Ibrahim al-Salam. Why did she do this? For the love of her son. We all know the story. After Ibrahim al-Salam, he leaves them there. Their provisions, water, food, everything runs out. There's nothing. You have a child that's nursing. If the mother can't eat, she can't nurse the child either. So there's nothing to eat, there's nothing to drink. But she understands that this is the command of Allah for them to be left here. So the one who has commanded them to be left here will also take care of them. But she also understands that there is this command of putting in an effort. So she climbs Safa to see if anyone is passing by that can give them something. And she doesn't see anybody. So she comes down from Safa to go to Marwa, to the other side. It's what? Probably a little over 100 yards different. Maybe 200 yards at the most. It's not that far. But go to the other side to look. In between is a dip, and she leaves her son close to where the Kaaba will be, to the foundations where the foundations of the Kaaba already are. So she leaves him there as she's walking back and forth. In between there's a dip, so now she can't see him anymore. So that's where she runs, so she can get to the other side quickly and see him again. The whole time she's looking at her son. She gets to Marwa, no one's there. Comes back the other way, maybe somebody, the thought comes into her mind, maybe somebody's passing from the other side now. Back and forth 7 times. On the 7th time, when she arrives at Marwa, then she hears the sound or the voice telling her to look, and what does she see? This water gushing forth from where the heels of Ismail al-Islam are rubbing. And now when she gets there, there's so much water gushing forward. Now she's concerned that it's going to be a flood. The interesting thing is, you're in the middle of the desert. You're not having any rain. Where is this water coming from? This is the barakah of the rubbing of the heels of Ismail alayhi salam. And there's so much water, now she starts saying, Zam, Zam, stop, stop. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if she had not said that, then this water would gush forth from the house of every believer. But the other interesting thing is, you have millions of people going there every year, drinking that water, bathing in that water, and now taking that water back home. And it never runs out. But back to the point. Running between Safa and Marwa is the ibadah of Allah. but it's the sunnah of Bibi Hajar alayhi salam. So again, who does it remind us of? We're worshiping Allah, but it has this connection, this nisbah, this connection to the ones that He loves. Of course, after the people, after they enter, the Hajjaj, after they enter Makkah, they make the tawaf, they do the sa'i between Safa and Marwa. And then, they cut the hair or shave the hair. And now, on the 8th of Zil Hajj, they go to Mina. You arrive in Mina, you stay overnight. Again, Mina is what? It's the place where Ibrahim al-Islam came with Ismail al-Salam. Again, this is the ibadah of Allah, but it's reminding us of the ones that He loves. It is connected to the ones that He loves. On the 9th of Zil Hajj, everyone goes to Arafah. This is the only, or the aspect of the Hajj. This is the only ritual of the Hajj, the only arkan of the Hajj that cannot be made up. If you miss any other arkan or any other ritual or rite of the Hajj, there are ways of making it up. You can give sacrifice, you can do this, you can do that. This is the only arkan of the Hajj, which is standing on the day of Arafat, on the 9th of Zil Hajj in Arafat. If you miss that, your Hajj, there's no way of making it up other than having to do Hajj again the next year, because you didn't do the Hajj. Arafat is the reality of Hajj. The interesting thing is that this is not the sunnah of Ibrahim al-Islam. Or rather, this isn't the sunnah that originated from Ibrahim al-Islam. It is the sunnah of Ibrahim al-Islam because he followed this sunnah of going to Arafat. But it did not originate from him. Like Safa and Marwa is the wife of Ibrahim al-Islam. Of course, it's also the sunnah of Ibrahim al-Islam, which is interesting because he's following the sunnah of his wife. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that this is his own, the ibadah of Allah. I'm going to talk about Arafat later. If I have time today, we'll talk about it today. If not, then we'll cover it next week, because that's a topic in itself. And again, that is the Hajj. Even if somebody is coming for Hajj, he misses all of the other arkan, he can make them all up, but he cannot make up Arafat. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that even if somebody is coming for the Hajj, and he gets close enough to Arafat that he can throw a stone into Arafat, Allah accepts his Hajj. But from Arafat we go back to Mina. So, you leave Mina the morning of the 9th. You go to Arafat. And then as the sun sets, you leave Arafat. You don't make Maghrib in Arafat. Come to Muzdalfa, which is in between Arafat and Mina. You make Maghrib and Isha together there. Spend the night in Muzdalfa. And then on the 10th, after Fajr, you leave Muzdalfa back to Mina. And the first thing we do when you arrive in Mina is you stone the big Jamarat, the big shaitan. So you stone him. Again, this is all ibadah of Allah, but it's the sunnah of the ones that He loves. So when we're stoning this, we are reminded of Ibrahim al-Islam. When he's taking Ismail al-Islam to sacrifice him, and shaitan comes in the form of an old man. Trying to convince him that, what are you doing? Why? Reasoning with him, why would Allah have you sacrifice your only son? the one you've been waiting for so many years, the one that he gave you at this old age. And just as he's entering this age where he can help you and work with you, why would he tell you to sacrifice him? And of course, Ibrahim al-Islam, knowing, he stones him, runs him off. Again, this is the ibadah of Allah that is connected to the ones that he loves. We leave from, after stoning the shaitan, and then the sacrifice. Unfortunately, these days, you pay up before, and most people, they don't experience the sacrifice there. Because, they stone the jamarat, they shave their head, and then that's it, because somebody else did the sacrifice. So there's no personal connection with it. But when we're sacrificing, though, again, who does this remind us of? It reminds us of the sacrifice of Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he's commanded to sacrifice Ismail alayhi salam. And yet, Ismail alayhi salam is replaced with this ram that was sent from Jannah. There are aspects of this that, unfortunately, most of us don't pay attention to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he talks about this sacrifice in the Quran, he says, وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And he also tells us that he replaced Ismail alayhi salam with ذِبْهٍ عَظِيمٍ, this great sacrifice. Many of us, when we read that, because we've been pushed away from Ahlul Bayt, from the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many of us, we think simply of, this ram is Zibhin Azim, is this great sacrifice. And that, and when وَتَرَكْنَا عَلَيْهِ فِي الْآخِرِينَ, that it was delayed or postponed for later generations, that, see, everybody after that is now sacrificing the animals. The problem with that is that, Allah says, Zibhin Azim, this great momentous sacrifice, which means that it has to be something big. He's ordered to sacrifice his son, and then he sacrifices a lamb. None of us would compare a ram to our own child. And then if I think that, it was this animal sacrifice was what was replaced, well, he did that then. So why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that it was postponed for a later generation, for later generations? Because the animal, the ram was sacrificed then. It wasn't postponed. Hajj occurs in Zil Hajj. Now, this is the month that Hajj is done. All of the months are connected with each other, just like every verse is connected with the one before it and the one after it. Same way, every month is connected with the one before it and the one after it. After Zil Hajj comes Muharram. What happened in Muharram? The sacrifice of Imam Hussein al-Islam in Karbala, which in reality is the sacrifice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is Dhibn Azim. This is the great sacrifice. This is the one that was postponed for generations. But again, unfortunately, most of us, we've been separated from Ahlul Bayt, so we never make that connection. Of course, so this is the 10th of Zil Hajj. The stoning of the jamarat, the sacrifice, the shaving of the head, and then tawaf ziyarah, coming back to Makkah and making tawaf, which again ties everything back together, reminding us of all of these ones that Allah loves, who, when we think of them and are reminded of them, and when we see them, we are reminded of their Creator, of the ones that they love. And so for now, for the next couple of days, the Jamarat. So all three of them. The first, on the 10th, only the big one. And then the other 3 days, or 2 days, depending on how long someone stays, there's the option there. All three of them, one by one. Stoning them. Again, reminding us of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But what it should remind us of also is the shaitan within ourselves. So that when we are stoning that shaitan, it's not simply we're throwing stones at a pillar or now a wall like they've made it. We should be stoning the shaitan within us. Every aspect of the Hajj has these spiritual connections. This is why when Abu Bakr Shibli rahmatullahi alayhi, who is the Khalifa of Junaid Baghdadi, the great Junaid. So Abu Bakr Shibli is his Khalifa. So one of his students went for the Hajj, and he came back from the Hajj. And he comes to his Shaykh and he says, Shaykh, I went and I made the Hajj. So the Shaykh starts asking him a lot of questions. And the questions are, did you do this? And when he would say yes, then he would ask him, well, when you did this, did you experience this? So for example, he asked him, he said, did you make 2 rakat at Salat Maqam Ibrahim? He said, yes. He says, then at that moment, did you feel that exalted status or position where you should be? And he said, no. And he said, well, you didn't make 2 rakat at Maqam Ibrahim. Because maqam, we think of, like I defined it before, that stone where Ibrahim alayhi salam stood. But maqam really is status or position. What is the position of Ibrahim alayhi salam? When Namrud is throwing him into the fire, and Jibreel alayhi salam, with the permission of Allah, not the command of Allah, but with the permission of Allah, comes to save him. What does Ibrahim alayhi salam ask him? He says, is Allah seeing me? What does that mean? Allah is seeing everything. What does that mean? It means, is Allah looking upon me with His pleasure? Is He pleased with me? He said, yes. He said, I don't need you then. If Allah is pleased with me in this condition, then I am pleased. He didn't make any dua that Allah saved me from this. Because a lot of people say, see, he didn't ask Jibreel, he didn't ask anyone. Well, he didn't even ask Allah. Because he knew Allah was pleased with him, so nothing else mattered. He says, if Allah is pleased with me being thrown into the fire, then I'm pleased with being thrown into the fire. This is Maqam Ibrahim. But he asked him about Arafat. He says, did you stand in the plain of Arafat? And he said, yes. He says, then at that moment, did you understand, or did the realization come upon you as to where you have come from, why you are here, what points you in that direction, and where are you going? And he said, no. He said, then you didn't stand in Arafat. Inshallah, we'll cover this next week. As I said earlier, I said Arafat is the Hajj, and we'll cover that next week, inshallah, because time's up. And it'll take me the whole time to cover that anyway, because it's an extensive topic. And I still won't scratch the surface of it. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us this understanding. And may He fill our hearts with His true love and the true love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all of those whom they love, inshallah. Those who have not made sunnah, go and make sunnah, inshallah.